from the West and the East and Central. So good morning, good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this webinar today, part of our Next Level webinar series titled Big Data, How to Leverage Non-Traditional Data for Decision Support. The webinar today will be presented by one of our top technical instructors, Rich Curry with an E. My name is Brian Duncan. I'm going to be your MC for this event. So what that means is that for today, if you guys have any questions while Rich is presenting, please feel free to put those in the chat box. And I'll make sure that if Rich doesn't see them in the chat box, that I make sure they get that he sees them and asks the question or answers the questions for you. So couple quick things about New Horizons. So this is actually presented by New Horizons. Rich is one of our instructors. We're the proven worldwide training provider with flexible learning solutions covering a broad spectrum of topics taught by industry-leading instructors. A couple quick facts about us is we have 2,100 classrooms, 2,400 instructors in actually over 70 countries, not 56. And we have some great flexible integrated learning methods with our instructor-led training, online live training, and private group training that we can do customized for your organization. People that should attend, who should be attending this webinar? Database administrators and technology leaders in increasing complex environments where decision support is becoming critical to the organization's success. And why should you attend this webinar? Traditional data storage and reporting techniques are no longer sufficient for providing organizations with the information they are required to support the decision-making process. New technology tools and techniques are available to make the storage, access, analysis, and delivery of this information more flexible, streamlined, and available. So I would like to now introduce Rich, who's going to take it from here.
Good morning, good afternoon, hello, and welcome. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Just to give you a quick little bit of background, I've been working with decision support systems since 1985 with companies like Lego and Nike and Barnes & Noble and some other global brands that you're probably familiar with, focusing in on data analysis and then the consumption of that information. So what I'm going to try and do today, the point of this, is to give you an overview of Microsoft solutions as they support the enterprise decision support. And there are a whole lot of different tools that come in. So we're going to start by giving you the overview of decision support and talk about some of the limitations of the traditional approach that's been taken over the years. Talk about some things that you want to keep in mind as you're going forward with projects to implement decision support solutions. Give you an overview of the tools and technologies that are available, including the on-prem capabilities of Power BI, and how O365 can expand those capabilities, and we're going to end up talking about the big data solutions for those of you that are looking at information that's characterized by high volume, high velocity, and high variability. That's really what characterizes big data. So let's start off with an overview of decision support. And decision support is really about providing the organization with the information that they need to do three levels of decision making. Strategic decision making, which we're all very familiar with, providing C-level with the ability to make long-term strategic decisions about the direction setting of the business. It's about tactical decision making, midterm decisions on whether or not we want to go with supplier A or supplier B, operational decisions about do we build product A tomorrow, do we build product B tomorrow, where do we put our resources in the next 24 hours. And that kind of information is really critical to making sure that the enterprise can do the right thing and remain profitable. That information is the lifeblood of your organization. Now, to leverage that information, we're drawing it in from a number of different places. We're drawing it in from our operational systems, where we're recording the transactions as they occur. We're drawing it in from external data sources, business partners, maybe demographic information. And now We're even starting to add in some non-traditional data, things like social media, web page scrapes, and grabbing information off the internet. And these are areas that truly give us some challenges because they don't lend themselves to traditional relational management. But here's the thing. As we look at this information, as we organize it, as we draw it together, many times the entities that we're tracking, the customers, the businesses, the partners, our suppliers, we've got those entities in multiple different systems. Fred in accounting types in a company name one way. Jill in sales puts a company name in a different way, but they're the same company. That can skew our information. So being able to create an environment where we have single sourcing of that information, master data management, and additionally making sure that all of the information that we're using is consistent across all those systems and correct across all those systems. Data cleansing. Master data management, data quality services are two tools that have been added in to support what's commonly called data stewardship. That role within the organization, which is primarily focused on ensuring the integrity of the information that's being used to make the decisions. Because let's face it, if your information that's going into decision making is bad, then the likelihood that the decision itself is going to be bad goes up. And that's never a good thing. So we've got traditional extract, transform, and load, right? Integration between our data sources, bringing it into a data warehouse, a centralized store, where we can now build data models, both tabular and multidimensional data models, supporting the Power BI solutions as well as data mining. And then what do we do with it? We have to present it out to the organization. Reporting services, Power BI suite also comes into play to making sure that not only does the organization have access to the information, but that they have it in a way that they can make sense of it and use it in the decision-making process. So, what are some of the limitations that we've run into? Well, really and truly, the single biggest limitation that we've had over the years has related to IT, information technology. It's because we have had an increasing set of demands placed on us. And because of that, prioritization takes more time, takes more effort, and has a greater impact on the organization's ability to get the information that they need the way that they need it at the time frame that they need it. Also, access to the information. End users don't have the access to the information. It is typically limited for technological reasons as well as security reasons. So what do we end up with? We end up with an IT department that's being asked to do more with less. Another big problem is the fact that nobody knows the business like the business. We as technology specialists don't always have that same insight into how they're utilizing the information, which makes it harder for us to give them what they need. When you put all that together, what happens? Spread marks. End users start using the world's most popular database, Excel, to collect their information, organize their information, and share their information. So our challenge is to make sure that we give them the appropriate set of tools. so that the decision process works more smoothly. What are the things that we need to keep in mind? Well, again, data stewardship is a big part of this. Being able to make sure that all of our information is current and correct. This is not a part-time job, unfortunately. One of the biggest critical success factors in any project that has to do with decision support is going to be the ability to have accurate information. The more time that we're going to spend correlating and correcting, making sure that we don't have duplication of information, that we don't have divergence between systems, is going to be a major part of any initiative. Using master data services and data quality services, we can reduce the time to market for many of these solutions and give them a better end result. Making sure that our business users have the skills and the tools, giving them tools that they're comfortable with. Many end users are very comfortable with Excel as a client interface. So why are we going to give them a tool like Management Studio, which is more technology-oriented? By giving them the ability to leverage the intuitive interface that they're comfortable with, it makes them more self-sufficient and, again, takes some of the load off of us. Instead of giving them access to raw data, making them figure it out, then let's build data models that present the information to them in terms that they're comfortable with, a collaborative infrastructure. And let's face it, some of this doesn't happen quickly, so they are going to require some back-end support. There are going to be tools and queries, especially when it takes time, when it comes to big data, to make sure that things get completed successfully. So again, Master Data Services. Master Data Services was first introduced with SQL Server 2008. It provides a knowledge base, right? A model where we can build entities and model the organization, creating entities and the attributes that they've got, being able to put in some business rules to validate the correctness of information, and being able to create what's called a hub and spoke architecture, where our operational systems, our external sources, provide input to the master data solution. Our data stewards then have the ability to manage the information within MDS. And then after that information has been validated and vetted, it can be sent back out again to the operational systems, the consuming systems, ensuring that everybody has a single picture of what the information is. We've got data quality services. Data quality services, again, came out in 2008. Its initial thrust was to give us the ability to do cleansing based on domain knowledge. Data stewards provide the expertise to validate the data so that every time we're bringing in new data from our operational systems, it gets checked against the knowledge base, and stewards have the ability to check new values to ensure that they are correct. And also to be able to do matching so that you can build matching projects with matching rules that give you a confidence level to try and figure out if two records from two different systems actually represent the same entity. We've got Power BI. Power BI is a suite of products that allows us to build self-service data analysis solutions. There's Power Pivot, Power View, Power Query, Power Map, and natural language Q&A. SharePoint, collaboration. Much of the Power BI on-prem solution leverages SharePoint as a collaboration tool, giving you the ability to integrate SharePoint with an analysis services server that's dedicated to hosting and sharing in a multi-user environment the data models that are built in Power Pivot, and also hosting and sharing out the visualizations that are built on top of those data models using Power View. We've got Office 365. O365, of course, is the online version of the Office product suite. O365 also gives you the ability to create Power BI sites and to host in a collaborative fashion the analysis information. And then we've got the gorilla in the house, HD Insight. HD Insight is Microsoft's implementation of the Hadoop platform. Hadoop was developed to deal with what's frequently referred to as NoSQL storage data. NoSQL means that it's semi-structured or unstructured data, and we need to dig through it and pull meaning out of this, what appears to be random jumble of information that we've scraped out of these high-volume sources. When you put all of this together, that is a decision support solution, is integrating all of these pieces together to provide the organization with what they need to run the business. So let's talk a little bit more detail about Power BI, what it's all about. We've got Power Pivot. Now, Power Pivot is an implementation of a data storage engine called Xvelocity. This data engine is based on the same technology that SQL Server uses for column store indexing. It is a highly efficient storage structure and very powerful query retrieval technology that gives us the ability to host a tabular data model inside an Excel workbook, and then to use that tabular model to build visualizations based on Power View. How do we get the data into Power Pivot? Well, traditionally, you bring the data in from a SQL Server database, but you know what? There's a lot more capability there. And Power Query gives us the ability to track into, to connect into many heterogeneous data sources, things like HD Insights clusters, NoSQL storage, the Azure Data Market, other Excel workbooks, and traditional multidimensional and relational data sources like Oracle, Analysis Services, DB2, any OLEDB or ODBC database. And then Power Query gives you the ability to massage that data, to shape it and filter it. It uses a language called M, the M scripting language. And you work with Power Query the same way you work with Excel macros. You choose an action and you see the result. And Power Query remembers what you just did. If it didn't work, you delete the action and you try it again and reconfigure it. But it is a step-by-step process or procedural approach to manipulating data. Once you've got all that data into your model, then you can start building visualizations with Power View. Power View is an interactive visualization tool that leverages Silverlight when it's hooked up with SharePoint, but also gives you the ability to create visualizations directly inside your workbook. Because they're interactive, people can work with them to focus the information in on what they need to get from that data, rather than having a static view and having to make a request. It works very similarly to a pivot table in traditional Excel workbooks, giving you the ability to drag, drop, and see it immediately. So what I'm going to, and before I get into this last part with SharePoint, I want to flip over for just a minute and just kind of give you a view of what a Power Pivot data model looks like and how we can build a visualization from it. So what we're looking at right now in this Excel workbook is a very traditional pivot table, where I've got my pivot table fields over here on the left side, and it's built off of a traditional pivot table structure. What I'm going to do is open up the back-end data model now. Here we go, where we now have a data model. In this data model, I'm going to flip over to the diagram view to show you that it's built very similarly to a traditional relational data model. It has tables, and each table has columns in it. The tables have keys. There are relationships between the tables. So the time to build a tabular data model for somebody who's comfortable with relational databases is very quick compared to the ramp-up speed that it takes to get familiar building a multi-dimensional model in many cases. The multi-dimensional model is still the primary model for doing things like data mining, but if you're looking at analyzing the relationships and doing traditional analysis, it is the Power Pivot data model that is probably going to give you the best results. I'm going to go back over here to my workbook now, and I am going to insert a Power View report. It opens up a new sheet within the workbook. And now we have the ability to start building our visualization. So for example, in here, I'm going to go to my reseller sales. And I'm just going to grab the sales amount very quickly. And when I check it off, it adds it into my visualization. Along with that sales amount, I'm going to put in some product category information, and I'm going to put in as well some sales territory information. And we're going to put in our sales territory group. I'm just going to reorganize this a little bit so that sales amount is last, and now I can start to choose my visualization type. A table is one kind. I can do a matrix or a card display as well. I can choose a bar chart or a column chart. And I've got line charts, scattered charts, and pie charts as well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a stacked column. And it changes my visualization now. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to send it up here, and we're going to just kind of leave that sitting here. And we're going to call this our reseller sales visualization, just to kind of make it, to give it something realistic here. I wish I could type, sorry about that. And now I'm going to add a second piece to this where, again, I'm going to grab my reseller sales amount. And again, I'm going to grab from my sales territory, I'm going to grab my group. And finally, I'm going to go to my date. And I'm going to grab the month name. Okay? Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the calendar year. And I'm going to drop this into the filters area and just filter this so it shows only 2008 data. And now down here, I'm going to turn this into a line chart. I'm going to take my legend, and I'm going to make that my sales territory group. I'm going to take my month and put it in the axis, and size this so that it's all the way down on the bottom. Now, want to see cool? This is one of the things that's helpful, is the highlighting. When I click on North America, it only shows me North American data. I can see Pacific just as quickly. I can see Europe just as quickly. If I click on just bikes, it shows me just my bike. I can click on just components for North America. So there is interactive filtering available. And that's really where the power of the Power BI tools comes in, because the interface is so intuitive and easy to use. Okay? How do we share it with everybody? Well, that's really where SharePoint comes in. SharePoint gives us the ability to take those data models and upload them into the SharePoint environment, where they're then hosted inside an analysis services instance that uses the tabular data model as a source for visualizations that are then stored inside the SharePoint site itself. We can set SharePoint up to refresh those data models. By default, data models keep a snapshot of the information. You need to actively refresh them. So SharePoint, working with analysis services to host the Power Pivot data models, that's really how on-prem Power BI is going to give you the most bang for its buck. But on-prem is not the only version of Power BI. There is also the O365 implementation. Now, when you're working with O365, what you're dealing with is truly a hosted solution. In O365, you have the ability to create a Power BI site where you can upload data models. Those data models can then have visualizations built on them and stored in a cloud-based SharePoint site. You can create gateways that are going to hook up your on-prem data with your O365 site in a secure fashion. And then you've got some additional functionality over and above the Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power View. We now add Power Map capabilities where we can create a story. We can tell a story geographically, showing the data, how it fits in, tying it to locations in a map, doing different scenes. And we can even generate videos that can be replayed without any internet connection. They're MP3s that you can upload and play on any MP3 device. Power Map requires geographical data along with the measures that you're going to display tied to that geographical data. You can have multiple scenes with layers on each scene to show different parts of the story, different pieces of data, different measures. And then the part that makes it really cool, natural language Q&A. Natural language Q&A and PowerMap are only available in O365. PowerMap is available with on-prem Excel as long as it's installed from an O365 license. Natural language Q&A is only available on an O365 Power BI site. It allows you to do natural language queries. What are the sales for North America over the last 6 years for bicycles? And it'll dig through all of the data models that are hosted in that Power BI site, and it will build a visualization to show you the answer. You don't need to know the data. You don't need to know the data models. Ask it what you want to know, and it'll build the result for you. And of course, all of this in today's connected world, if you haven't got a mobile app, you really aren't providing a complete solution. So Power BI has mobile capabilities built in to be able to access the visualizations that have been hosted on the O365 site and give them access anywhere that you can get a connection to the web with your mobile device. Big data. Ha ha ha. Now this, even though we've talked a lot about some of the other stuff that's been going on, this is really where things have changed. Big data is all about analyzing information that has high volume. There is lots of it out there, and you need to figure out how you're going to query it and store it. It is variety. It is unstructured. It is semi-structured. It comes from a multitude of sources, and it's high velocity. Think for a minute about Bing or Google or any of the search sites. Many times, as you access other websites, they're tracking what you have looked at, what you have searched, and they're using that information to provide advertising on other sites that you visit. And that advertising is targeted directly to your interests. If you think about how many people are on the web and how much information is being generated that needs to be tracked, that needs to be captured and analyzed, that's really what big data is all about. High velocity, high variety, and high volume. Microsoft's solution to that is HD Insight. That's the semi-structured and unstructured part of things. That doesn't mean that we don't have high-volume relational data. That is the Parallel Data Warehouse, which is an appliance solution utilizing SQL Server relational database engine that uses massively parallel processing, including a control node, which is the primary interaction to taking requests, query nodes and storage nodes, which provide the distributed query processing environment. The information is spread across multiple computers. There is another computer that accesses that information and queries it. And then the control node brings the results together. There are management nodes that can be used to configure the entire architecture, as well as to do things like backups and restores of data. And with HD Insight is not an on-prem solution. HD Insight is an Azure-based solution. It is required that you have an Azure account to use the HD Insight technology. It gives you the ability to configure and spawn clusters on demand. Uses a very similar approach to data analysis, using a divide and conquer approach to the analysis of the information. You create an Azure storage account. And in that Azure storage account, you put the data that you're collecting from your web scrapes, from your social media, from your PLCs, from your click tracks. Whatever those high volumes are, you need someplace where you're going to put terabytes of information. It's all metered. You only pay for what you use. So once you've analyzed it and boiled it down, you can get rid of it and collect more. You can put those results into a parallel data warehouse. HDI utilizes what's called MapReduce technology. MapReduce is a two-part approach. There is a mapper program, traditionally written in Java. In HDI can also be written in C# or other .NET languages. You build a DLL that contains the functionality to analyze that semi-structured information and produces key value pair output. And then you've got a reducer. The reducer takes the key value pair output from the mappers and correlates it and boils it down, reduces it to a single consolidated result that includes all of the results from all of the mappers combined together. Very, very technical in nature to do a MapReduce solution. So there are some other projects that have come about that can give you the ability to simplify that a little bit. There's Pig. Pig, similar to Power Query, is a kind of procedural approach for defining MapReduce functionality. It uses a language called Pig Latin to define a step and an action to take on the data. And it produces a tuple. That tuple then has another action taken on it that produces a new tuple. And so on and so on. Step by step by step, you define the shaping and filtering that goes into producing the result. It uses a language called Pig Latin, and you do this definition inside what's called the grunt shell. No, I can't make it up. Honest to goodness, I didn't invent that, I promise. If you're more comfortable with relational, then there's Hive. Hive allows you to project a table structure on top of your semi-structured or unstructured data. You define that structure, and then when you go to do the processing, it is projected on top of the data and gives you the ability to define your result in a set-based fashion, similar to SQL, using what's called HiveQL. You've got select clauses, you've got from clauses, you've got order bys and group bys. The end result is two alternatives. Other than building MapReduce DLLs to analyze the data. Now let's face it, most of these things, when you're talking about dealing with terabytes of info, you're not going to run a query and have it produce a result in 2 minutes. It might take 6, 7, 8, 10, 14 hours. It is not something that you want somebody babysitting and watching. And it is something that you want to do on a periodic, scheduled, routine basis. So there is Oozie. Oozie is a scripting language for automation that allows you to build flexible job definitions that can be configured to use parameter style configurations so that you don't need to depend on a single name for a storage account. You can build a script that takes as an input the name of the storage account, where the data is. That output can be brought into your tabular data models using Power Query. Power Query can connect directly to the HDI cluster to issue queries where the data will be processed on demand, or it can connect to your Azure storage account to retrieve the results of a previously issued query. So I got parallel data warehouse with relational data. I've got HDI with NoSQL data or semi-structured data. I really would like a way to be able to query the two of them simultaneously. Well, that's cool. How about Polybase? Polybase is the technology that allows you to integrate the information stored relationally in a parallel data warehouse with the information stored unstructured in an HD Insight cluster. You issue your query, a standard T-SQL query, to Polybase. And Polybase then, based on the relational database definition and schema and the HDI definitions, distributes the processing where it needs to go, so that you're only dealing with a single query that is then having its results brought together from the two technologies to provide a single result. You have the ability as well to transfer data between relational and HDI data sources with Scoop. Scoop uses Java database connectivity to define connections and connection strings to allow SQL Server Management Studio to integrate directly with an HD Insight storage account. And finally, we've got PowerShell. PowerShell with modules to connect and manage HD Insight clusters, to connect and manage SQL Server instances, so that you can create a single workflow utilizing all of these different technologies to analyze, to filter, and to make sense of the data so that it can be consumed in your Power Pivot models and your Power View visualizations. There's a lot going on in the decision support world. As all of these non-traditional sources become available, as we find more ways to use the information that we've got from all of our traditional sources as well, and how do we integrate them all together. So that's the overview of what decision support in the Microsoft world looks like. We've, touched on it, and I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions, anything we can do to clear things up, feel free to share. Other than that, I thank you very much for your time and hope to see you again down the road at some point.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rich. That was great. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat box. Rich has a little bit of time that he can answer those questions for you. See if anything comes in here. That was a lot of great info. I think everybody might have gotten all their answers. So, Rich, thanks again for all your time. Thank you, everyone that attended. We really do appreciate you taking your time out of your day to watch our next level webinars. And please remember to keep checking for new ones that come out. And one more time, thanks a lot, Rich, for your time, and we really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. And again, thanks everybody for joining us, and hope to see you down the road again at some point. Have a great day, everyone.